What's up, everybody? We've had a very busy summer. We used to have raised garden beds in here on the hay bales on the mulch hay, which we used to kill off the grass so we could plant some of these herbs and things that the animals really don't bother. This was supposed to be, well, it is. This is like a fresh cut flower clipping, cutting assortment that we got. We were really excited for some flowers. So there have been a couple. Certainly not as many as were purportedly going to occur, but our peas didn't do great, didn't do well, haven't done great, and so we're going to change our situation for that next year. Here's our little black raspberry, not blackberry, black raspberry. It's an important difference. If you know what I'm talking about, then you know how delicious black raspberries are and what filth blackberries are. And when I found a bush at a client's house, in fact I have several now, I have many bushes. We started 3 or 4 in pots, and which are still going well, and we cut this guy back. He's a monster, so we're hoping for a big bush next year. Here are our garden beds. They moved over into this location here where the grass has been killed there and there, because we started to notice that the morning sun, 8 o'clock or so here, we were having a shadow that was sort of creeping around, and then finally everything was in the sunlight by the time it's at midday. So for vegetables, you really want to maximize sun, so we moved them to here. And then when I decided what it was I wanted to do for sure, I had an extra half of the day with a post hole auger for another project, so I came home on lunch and I put these big 6x6s in the ground. It's just one of those things. I know Rob from Concord Carpenter, which we're a fan of that channel, he was talking recently about compounding error. I think for rafters for that chicken coop that they're building, you don't want to see any compounded error, because it has the ability to destroy an entire project if it gets started early enough. So when we were careful about our 6-post layout, to start with, there was a 9-inch diameter auger on the machine, and I had a 12-inch diameter auger that I could put on it. And as a lazy piece of shit, I didn't want to bother to do the switching. It was about to rain, so I just cut the 9-inch holes. Well, there's room in there for a 6x6 post, but there's less room there's less wiggle room. So I could have arbitrarily put 6, not arbitrarily, but just a dab of spray paint on the ground and a quick measurement. I could have put 6 12-inch diameter holes in, and then when I go to bring in my 6x6s on a perfect rectangular layout, I have all kinds of wiggle room. But because the hole was smaller, I needed to be more precise about the location, and it bit me in one spot. I had to just pare the side of the hole off a little bit to scoot the one 6x6 over like an inch or so, because you may believe, if you've never done any of this, that once you're in the ground you can just squish into it like it's mud, but it's basically iron and immovable. So we did a little bit of adjustment, but we got our 6x6s in, and then I just packed in the existing soil. I bought 3 12s, right? Yeah. So I bought 3 12-footers. I cut them into 6-footers. I put them 2 to 3 feet into the ground. I had 2 to 3 feet sticking out, and I had originally planned on putting knee braces underneath this, and I may, I guess, in the future. Although now I've done a router detail, so I guess I wouldn't. Maybe I'd do them in 4x4, but I probably won't. Anyway, the extra length was, that was left over would have been enough for knees, but in the end it'll work for cribbing. So we tried to be economical there. But I got the 6 holes in the ground, the 6 posts in the ground. I carefully had them strapped all together with 2x4s that controlled the top layout, and then obviously we racked it all around and dialed every one of them into perfectly plumb, down and I, and we backfilled them with soil. No footings, because we weren't really worried about bearing a lot of weight on these. Yes, I wouldn't want to pick any of these up myself, but in the scheme of things, it isn't that much. If this thing weighs wet, soaking wet dirt, if it weighs 300 or 400 pounds, now we're splitting it between 2 posts, we're back to 200 pounds or something of pressure on a 6 inch by 6 inch square, for the sake of argument. And so that's 36 inches, so whatever, 300 pounds divided by 36, and we're down to like 10 psi or something. I really hope my math checks out. But anyway, the point is, I engineered it in my dome piece, and I'm fine with it. And it makes a beautiful place, although we'll have to we'll let this dry, but next year we'll probably put a product on there to color it and protect it from the sunlight from turning gray. But we were careful about our height, so that it ended up being handy and comfortable to work. In fact, the hay had settled, so Katie was starting to dip so low underneath it that she's the one that brought it up. You know, let's make sure that it's at the right height, of course. And we got peppers and tomatoes coming in. And there'll be enough room. We did 16 feet, and then I stepped off the edge with the deck board even. Anyway, there's enough room for 4 continuous, you know, units in the future. I figured we'd just start with one third one. These here cost me about $100. You know, just the IBC tote itself when I bought them. Then a guy locally, this one just popped up. He just needed 25 bucks for it. I would have gotten 2 if they both matched, but he only had one this style. The other styles he had square cross-section tubing, which I could have probably made work, but just kind of anal like that. In fact, I was a little perturbed that the base is plastic and not galvanized, but I'm learning to live with it. So anyway, next year we'll have him and maybe even a 4th one up here. But then I just felt as though, you know, make it larger than you know you want, and then in case for expandability. And we may do another one here, you know, with another walk lane between, but for these to work, I got to be able to drive straight up at them, pick them up with get the forks all the way under, and then back up, you know, and turn out in either direction. By the time you've done that, you really got to be way the hell over here with the next one. And you know, the skid steer still kind of makes a mess of things, so you don't want to have to do that a lot, but we're playing around here. I'm also considering the A-frame chicken coop coming right through here. So we have a sidewalk over to the man door that you'd step in, and if you need to go into the run, and then it would go right along here, which would be kind of a cool little situation to be, you know, right along here, and then the coop would start, and the coop would continue over to about here, and then out the back of the coop would be, you know, how they get into the run themselves. And this is just the little coop we borrowed from the neighbor, because the girls started laying before hey, this is just open. The girls started laying eggs before I got to building the coop, obviously, so that'll either come through here, or maybe somewhere over here. Here's our gravel and topsoil filter, or I forget what I called the video. Consistency, Chazzy, consistency. And like I said, the girls started laying, so we just borrowed the neighbor's hen. She's the barred rock in there somewhere. Oh yeah. And the white ceramic eggs, and the brown ones are the real ones. And the girls are in here, I think. I can hear everybody. Yes. We borrowed, we call her Carol. They called her Godzilla. She's basically both. But we borrowed her because she had run out of friends. Mr. Fox had invited himself in and stayed for dinner. Ooh, something's dead. Something's dead over here. I can smell it. Unless it's in the neighbor yard. Ew, it's a real case of yuck. Anyway, this will be how we're going to integrate this topsoil thing into the chicken coop eventually here, when we know what we're going to do with into the chicken pen, when we know what we're going to do with the coop and stuff like that. So anyway, this video is about the raised garden beds, and they really turned out nice. And I think given enough time for them to be grown in more, and you know, we may supplement this whole situation with some flower box that goes all the way along, and some framed treated lattice that goes all the way along, so that stuff can grow up across the front, you know, so that we can start bigger like zucchini and squash vines and come right out and then grow the whole vine, you know, along there. And actually aubergine or eggplant, we saw that actually will grow up of its own, you know, free will, and the eggplant hangs down, which we weren't aware of. I would have assumed it grows more like squash. So we're going to start some cool stuff next year, but for now, that's how those turned out. So thanks for watching. We'll see you.